is will be happening in a few minutes. But before that, short announcement, because we have a lot of new viewers. We broke the record from yesterday. We have now 37K people watching, which is really nice, and that's also nice for the host of this tournament, which is abiosgaming.com. Basically, abiosgaming.com is a site with an calendar, with an esports calendar, and a go-to place when it comes to esports. You can check results and schedules for 10 esports titles, including Smash Bros. Recently, and you can also install Firefox and Chrome extensions for notifications, so you don't have to browse anything, and you will be just instantly notified by Abios here, and that's really cool to see. I think it's like a really important thing to add to your usual software you use, because there are so much things happening in esports right now. It's developing so fast with the amount of matches in every single game. And like an example, following the CS:GO scene and Hearthstone scene, of course, there's a lot of stuff happening at the same time. So I don't have time to watch everything. How about you, Subtle?
Yeah, same. I mean, I've started getting in a little bit more. Primarily, the only esports scene that I was involved in, apart from Hearthstone, was fighting games, which is a little bit separated from esports generally. But I've started to dabble in a few other games. So yeah, Abios Gaming, definitely a resource that I can see myself getting a lot of usage out of.
Cool. I know you were into the fighting scene, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Was it Smash Bros. Or other
It
titles?
wasn't, no. Smash is one of the few games that I don't play. Smash has recently sort of picked up and become a bit more esports accepted than the other fighting games, but things like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom and Tekken and games like that, they're still kind of their own community in terms of the fighting game community as a separate thing. They're not really that involved in the esports scene. It's generally only like DreamHack where you see them cross over with each other. So yeah, a little bit separated, but still, Abios Gaming looks like a pretty excellent resource for if you're fans of CS:GO or StarCraft, League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, anything like that. So.
Dota, of course.
Dota.
Yeah. Anyway, all the stuff that we have to planned out for today is a giveaway, an ongoing giveaway with Battle.net gift cards, and there are two ways of entering that giveaway. The easiest one, and I think most entertaining one too, is to tweet something about this tournament with a hashtag AbiosGT, and that makes you automatically a participant in the giveaway, and also it's a given bonus with, you know, you maybe will be featured on stream, and anything that you say will be appearing on that stream. So that's a really cool thing. If you want a second way of just having a chance of winning something in this giveaway, you just type !giveaway, and I see with my eyes of imagination that what's happening right now on Twitch chat after I say that !giveaway. Other comments you can use are !bracket, which gives you the link to the bracket of the tournament on abiosgaming.com, or the extensions, which gives you the information and links about the Firefox and Chrome extensions. If you want to know something about the tournament itself, type !AbiosGT. And that's it. What can we say about those two participants? Subtle, Kaldi and StanCifka.
I think the big talking point here is StanCifka's Warrior deck that we saw played yesterday, which includes things like double Iron Beak Owl, double Bouncing Blade, double Deathlord, Justicar Trueheart. It's almost like a fatigue-style Warrior deck that's looking to just like exhaust your opponent out of options.
Yeah, that's a really cool deck.
Yeah, so it did really well for him yesterday in a handlock matchup. I know Oskaka was slightly unhappy with the way that he played that matchup, I think. But yeah, still, StanCifka played that deck very, very well. Nice to see some new kind of creative deck archetypes coming out here. So, Kaldi, from his perspective, he got through yesterday, but he was complaining that he wasn't feeling well yesterday. He was on a lot of pain medication, was really under the weather. Actually spoke to him this morning before we came onto the cast. And he said he still has a bit of a fever, but he's feeling a little better and hopes he can play better today than he played yesterday. But yesterday was already good enough to see him through to the last 8. So if he's able to step it up, he has a good chance of getting through to the top 4.
And getting rid of that chunk of the prize pool, which is $5,000. So yeah. And one important thing, because I totally forgot about it, and we had a lot of new viewers. If you want to see more tournaments happening on this channel, be sure to click the follow button, because not only Hearthstone but all other games will be broadcasted on this brand new Abios TV channel. So be sure to click to click that follow button under the stream. And let's talk a little about the matchups. But before that, just wanted to say to the viewers that StanCifka was actually eating an apple or a pear. I'm not exactly sure what was that, but he was eating on camera. So yeah. The matchups. Kaldi has a Druid, Warlock, and Warrior. StanCifka, Druid, Warlock, and Warrior. But as you were mentioning before, they are not usual decks.
Right. I think Kaldi's lineup is fairly standard. I think we are looking at Patron, Handlock, and just double combo Druid, if I remember rightly from yesterday. But StanCifka does have that little twist with his Warrior deck. So it's not an exact mirror matchup. They are mirrored in terms of classes, but the choice of the decks is just a little bit different. It looks like we are ready to get into game number 1 right now, and it is going to be Kaldi on Druid versus StanCifka. Looks like a Warrior. It is. So it's the really, really slow Warrior deck against Druid. And generally, Druid is favored against Control Warrior, but this isn't quite Control Warrior. Is there any cards that we saw in the deck yesterday that would help this deck be more competitive against Druid?
I think that's like cards like an example, Deathlord. Might be a very big problem for Druid if he doesn't ramp up fast enough. Because if you can't follow it up, like let's say there's a turn for Deathlord and you couldn't play a turn to Palette Shredder to like just deal the 8 damage really fast, the Deathlord might be a problem.
At the same time, the Deathlord dying is likely to have a decent amount of value for the Druid player, right? Because the deck is just packed full of like good drops from a.
But then also like a big game hunter. There's also like an Ancient of War, which is only a 5/5.
Yeah, Druid of the Claw, which will only be a 4/4 uncharged. Yes, exactly. So yeah.
And that minion dies to a single strike from Deathspite.
Yep, that's very true. So yeah, we see no on-curve play here for Kaldi, but swipe to be mana efficient here, or is he valuing the possible usage of Wrath to cycle later on? Or what's the rationale here between swiping over just Wrathing and using your hero power?
I'm thinking about it. Because maybe Stan is thinking that this is a patron deck. Sorry, Kaldi is thinking that this is a patron deck. He didn't do his like scouting. I'm really not the type of a dude that will say that, because Kaldi is an analyst.
Yes, so. Absolutely. But having said that, he probably did struggle just to summon the energy to play his tournament game yesterday with how rough he was feeling. So after he won, he literally may have just gone to bed. And StanCifka was the last game to be played of the evening. So he might not have had a chance to catch it, maybe didn't have a chance to look at the VODs. So it's possible he doesn't know that he's playing against a control style warrior here. But still, swipe over Wrath, very interesting decision there. But moving on, StanCifka doesn't have an on-curve play to make here either. He has the option to coin out a Sludge Belcher just to get himself onto the board, but looks like he's just going to chill, sit back on his seat, have a little munch on whatever that is he's eating, and have a nice long hard think about this turn. StanCifka just never really seems to be in a rush to do anything, does he?
Now here's the next life coach.
Yeah.
I mean, we are not necessarily sure what are the exact cards in StanCifka's deck. So maybe there's a lot of choices you want to make based on what you have available still, right?
Yep, but still, I mean, if he doesn't Harrison Jones this Fiery War Axe, I think it's fairly safe he thinks he's playing against Patron, right? Because against Control Warrior, Deathbite isn't that much better than Fiery War Axe. It's still a really, really good weapon, but you don't have the amazing, destruction of the game plan that you do when you destroy Deathbite against Patron. So just drawing 2 cards here, you're basically playing an Ancient of Law on turn 5.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's super cool.
Yep.
It's a 5 mana Ancient of Law with only 1 HP less.
There we go. All right, Harrison Jones does come down.
And now, Cifka will be...
I like the attack here. I like the attack here a lot.
Do you? It dies to Deathspite.
Yeah, I know, but this is something I've started to do more and more recently with my Druid play, is like, especially against a class like Warrior, where if you get overly greedy with your shade, it can just die to the Brawl anyway. As soon as you have your second big minion consolidated on the board, if this thing just gets Deathbite, sure, you still have another 5/4 on the board that's still pounding.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I'm pretty happy to just get the value out of it when I can, as soon as I get a decent board presence built up.
The Sylvanas was a no-brainer play here, but God. Well, that's just devastating for StanCifka, the top deck keeper. I mean, there were a lot of chances of him having the keeper anyway, right? So...
The absolute toppest of decks. Keeper of the Grove, certainly going to be played.
Yep.
Looks like he's going to cycle a Wrath first.
Will he? Okay.
Interesting. So it does look like he was valuing the cycle potential of the Wrath over the swipe, and that is the reasoning behind him keeping it, so that's very interesting. But yeah, keeper has to come down here, right? There's just no way around it. This thing has to be keepered.
And you ignore it, right? You just go face for 10 damage.
Yeah, do you mind if it picks up the free trade on the Keeper of the Grove? Not really. I mean, I guess the risk is Brawl, right? Like, he has a 1 in 4 chance of a really blowout Brawl if you leave it alive, but he has to have drawn the Brawl, and then on top of that, he has to win in 1 in 4. It doesn't seem like that big of a risk, but yeah.
Yeah, I was almost sure that he's trading with the Shade, right?
Yeah, it looked like it. Garrett was doing it. And
my jaw dropped for a second.
Yeah, that's never the play. You're definitely not trading with the Shade. Trading with the Harrison, maybe we can justify, but the Shade trade, no.
Okay, now Silence will have some value. Bash is a very cool card. When I was seeing, when I was watching the previews for TGT, I said that Bash is almost the best card in the set.
I was really big on it when I first saw it as well. Yeah, I didn't go that far, but I thought it was going to be a really nice, flexible card to fit into.
I mean, it will get better if Patron will be, let's hope, nerfed, right? Because then probably the Control Warrior will get back into the metagame, and Bash will be just like almost stable inclusion in Control Warriors.
Right. Second Keeper looks like a pretty solid draw here. There are things like Deathlords to worry about that he might have to silence if he wants to push through for lethal, but otherwise, probably not too many silence targets left in the deck, right? Sylvanas is the big one that you kind of earmark. I guess Belchers, same concern. You might have to silence them to push through for lethal, but the snipe here for 2 damage looks pretty solid. Hero power down the owl. Just keep beating away with the Harrison Jones for 5 to face. It's like a pretty solid game plan.
Yep, definitely. And, well, this matchup usually goes this way, that, yeah, you just deal damage with the minions, finish it off with the combo, and the only way of Warrior making a comeback here is cards like Shield Slams and Shield Maidens. Justica helps a lot, but it's time consuming a lot. So you need immediate cards with immediate effect on the board. So Shield Maiden is better in this situation, but only if you pair it up with your Shield Slam.
Yep. Generally, Justica is a card that you want to stabilize the board first before you start stabilizing your life total, because if you just try and play Justica onto a board like this, it's just such a low tempo play. You know, you invest 6 mana into a 3 health minion, and then it gets wrath down for 2 mana. The Druid just gets to gain 4 more mana's worth of tempo. And, you know, the extra health you're gaining just doesn't really get anywhere. You have the Brawl to back up that sort of thing, which makes it slightly more effective. But, yeah, I like the Shield Maiden here for the more competitive body than Justica, for sure.
Yep. But the options for the Druid are not limited at all. What do you think about just slamming the Emperor, hero power, trading with the 5/5, and just going face with the Keeper?
I mean, so the only reason you're trading there is that you want to try and protect your Emperor, right?
Yes.
Give it an extra turn to potentially live.
And you didn't see any weapons, any executes before.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that play. I mean, I do also value the face damage extremely highly in this situation. When you're Emperoring Force of Nature, Savage Roar, Swipe, and 2 Druid of the Claws, that's like an insane amount of burst you can put together over 2 turns as a follow-up. Ooh, he's going to go for the lower Theb here just to try and consolidate this board, make it really, really resistant to any removal, like a Brawl, like a Shield Slam, like an Execute, and then just hope that he can push through with enough damage the turn after with Force of Nature, Savage Roar.
That's actually a good play. It puts up lethal, almost certainly a lethal next turn.
Right.
But at the same time, Emperor allows you to use the combo for 7 mana, and you can pair it up with... No, you can't. Okay, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically like the break point there is the decision between playing the long game with like the long-term Emperor value that lets you stack up a bunch of damage over the next 2 or 3 turns Whereas Kaldi's option here is just flipping the kill switch this turn and just saying, okay, I'm not messing about, I'm just going to kill you next turn. And the lower fair bit denies removal, but it also denies things like shield block that he could use to get out of range. So yeah, it seems like a pretty solid line of play here from Kaldi.
Well, if you would play Emperor, you can deal 18 damage from hand next turn, which is also nice.
Can you?
Yes, because you can play combo with Swipe.
No, that's 10 mana. He'd only have 9.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Never mind that.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about. Chat will just destroy me right now.
It's fine. Twitch chat has to have their victory occasionally, right? If they get to catch our mistakes every now and again, good for them.
We did it, Reddit.
Yeah. So that is just going to be lethal. StanCifka just goes with the armor up play. I don't think Belcher was enough to protect him anyway. Kaldi going to play the top decks out of Force of Nature just for a bit of tilt potential, but I don't think StanCifka was paying any attention to where that card came.
He didn't. And like this is the matchup which you usually lose to, so I don't think that's a problem.
Yep, absolutely. So Force of Nature Savage Roar sealing the game, as many games have been sealed, and Kaldi going off to a 1-0 lead, looking very strong in this tournament so far, despite the little bit of a health problem that he's having. So congratulations to him. I hope he can keep it up and get through to the top 4 for his sake.
Tempo Storm is on tech.
Right, and sort of the big powerhouse teams are performing really well in this tournament so far, right?
Well, Garver's out.
Archon has 2 players through. Nihilum has a player through. Sorry, okay. Pronounce Nihilum for me, just so
Nihilum.
Nihilum. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I won't get that wrong anymore.
It's like a Latin word. It's actually a Latin word. It means nothing.
Yeah. So yeah, Nihilum has a player through. Archon has 2, and Kaldi in a good spot to join them as a Tempo Storm representative as well. So like the big Hearthstone organizations are doing pretty well in this tournament so far.
And now the next matchup, probably, what do you think? What will be? Well, what it will be? Because Kaldi has still a Warlock and Warrior in his arsenal, and you probably don't want to queue up a Handlock into StanCifka's Warrior. And as we talked yesterday, most of the players want to stick to their guns when it comes to Conquest, right?
Yeah.
So they usually stick with the deck that we're playing the last round if they lose it.
Right.
So, yeah.
And it's hard to say, like, there's a certain, like, element of pride to that, of, like, I lost with this deck, I want to recover, I want to show that this deck's good. But also there's just the thing of, like, you picked that deck first for a reason. Like, that's the deck that you wanted to win with first. So that doesn't change after the first loss. You still want to win with that deck first. So it kind of makes a lot of sense that it generally does happen that way, and that people tend to queue up the same thing, but that is something that can be exploited by your opponent if you fall into that habit too consistently.
Yeah, that's a good point. But we'll see in a second if StanCifka will actually use the Warrior for a second time. Nope, he switches to Warlock.
So it's going to be Kaldi on the Warrior this time as the patron player, and StanCifka picks up the strong matchup as the Handlock.
There was one inclusion in StanCifka's deck that we actually see in the opening hand that I just want to talk about. Alex Straza was an inclusion in Handlock like 1 year ago. And
Ring Farseer as well. Speaking of 1 year ago.
Yeah, it actually looks like a deck from 1 year ago.
It's a really old school list, right?
Yeah, unless you cut out the Hillbot, right?
Yeah.
No inclusion, but it looks really, really different from what we see usually from Handlock's decks in general.
I mean, Earthen Ring Farseer is a card that I kind of miss in Handlock sometimes, because there's just those situations where you get your 8/8 down at the start of the game, and then you're under enough pressure that your 8/8 is kind of forced to trade on the board. You can't just slam face with it. And then in that situation, the Earthen Ring Farseer is such a nice follow-up. If you just get to trade into like a 4-attack minion or a 3-attack minion and then heal it back up with the Farseer and just retain the full value of your giant, that's so potentially game-winning that I do find myself like reminiscing about the days when Farseer was in the deck. But Handlock is such a tight deck in terms of cards that they want to play that finding room for things like Earthen Ring Farseer is kind of tricky to me.
Already one giant and Twilight Drake in hand. That's a lot of threats, and I think StanCifka will follow it up with a Twilight Drake. Then Tin 5 would be a tap into giant.
Yeah, I was just about to ask how you feel about the threat ordering in this matchup, because normally that's the general conventional wisdom, like you play the Drake first because then you get to tap giant the next turn. But against Patron Warrior, that lines up really, really terribly against Deathbite, because if you play Twilight Drake, they equip Deathbite, they swing into your Twilight Drake, so the Drake then has 5 health remaining, and then the turn after you play a Mountain Giant, and then they swing the Deathbite again into the Twilight Drake, do the 5 damage to kill that, the Whirlwind effect goes off, and then they have the Execute just to take down your Mountain Giant.
Okay.
So I almost like playing the Mountain Giant first in this matchup and just literally demanding the Execute straight away, just to remove that real blowout possibility. But StanCifka gone down a different line entirely and decided to really value denying the cards from his opponent with the IMD count.
Yeah, that's a completely different type of play than just putting out a threat on board. Because how you want to play against Patrons usually is to just pressure them enough to kill them before they kill you.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, like basics.
It sounds easy, right?
Yeah, it sounds easy and like basic of every single deck. You kill them before they kill you. But it's like, I think it's one of the the only way of winning against Patrons. You have to pressure them enough. It's not about like sustaining the damage from them, because if they draw the whole deck, they possibly just swipe you from the face of the air.
I like the coin. Wow, he's going to cycle both Battle Rages just for 1 card each. That does surprise me. I like the coin Acolyte there quite a lot myself. StanCifka went to the ends of the earth. I mean, it sounds weird, right? All he did was play an owl, but he really did, like, if you make a handlock do something on turn 4 that isn't play a massive threat, that's a huge commitment for them. So if he's that scared of raw Acolytes on the board, I don't mind just coining out another raw Acolyte and saying, well, okay, how do you want to deal with this one?
Yep. At the same time, you asked me about the threat ordering, right? And how do you feel about that if most of the warriors are playing Shield Block, Shield Slam? Because usually when we are thinking about a matchup, let's say Handlock against Warrior Control, they usually want to start first with the Twilight Dragon because it chips off the armor before you can use the Shield Slam to like a value at all.
Yep, no, that's a really good point. But yeah, it's one of the things about Hearthstone, right? There's all these little tiny nuances, and it's a very simplistic game at its core. It doesn't have any like in-depth, crazy mechanics or anything like that. All the cards are quite simple in comparison to something like Magic the Gathering. But there's little nuances like the things that we keep talking about over this cast that do make this game just incredibly complex to play at a really high level.
I mean, the interesting thing about Hearthstone is that a small misstep might lead to an instant defeat.
Yeah,
that's very interesting. It's very Hearthstone is punishing, very punishing when you compare it to other card games.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Second Slam picked up here. This is very much just a cycle matchup, and with this hand, he has a Frothing Berserker and a Grim Patron already. So I'd like him to find some way to cycle here. He's going with the Acolyte Inner Rage, which I think is totally fine. It's more mana efficient than using the Slam overall. Yeah, he's just going to try and pick up as many cards as he can.
The way you play a Patron deck against a Handlock is usually you want to kill them with the Frothing Berserkers, because the Patrons are... The objective of the Patrons in this matchup is usually to just trade with minions before you go with the Frothing Berserkers to the face, or you just use them as defense line when you're being threatened by a lethal from your opponent.
Yeah.
And that's the reason behind that is the fact that that the Handlocks are just sporting 2 Hellfires and a Shadow Flame. Just kill them after you spam the board. So that's not really a big of a deal for the Handlock to deal with.
Yeah, the other usage of Patrons in this sort of matchup that's been ruled out by the way that Kaldi's played the early game turns is sometimes you'll use them on sort of turn 8, turn 9 with maybe 1 Inner Rage and 1 Whirlwind, just in order to cycle a Battle Rage for several cards. But since Kaldi's used his Battle Rage, both his Battle Rages early just to draw 1 card each, he's not going to have that option available to him. So yeah, Grim Patrons will probably be reserved for a board clearing tool, just to clear the way to set up for a lethal on the following turn with the Frothing Berserker. But before we get to any of that, he has to find 2 very crucial cards, Warsong Commander and Emperor Thaurissan, which are both borderline essential in terms of putting together a combo that will get through a Handlock's defenses with the amount of taunts they can put into play.
Definitely.
Speaking of Emperor, there is an Emperor Thorasan, but unfortunately for Kaldi, it's on StanCifka's side of the board.
And now this makes a really awkward board for Kaldi. You have to deal with those minions with the weapons. You don't exactly want to do this. Still missing the crucial card, which is, as Ren would say, 2 Warzone Commanders and 28 random cards in the deck. So you need that Warzone Commander in your hand.
So I guess he's just evaluating any possible lethals here. If he's been keeping track, he'll know his opponent still has the coin. So he does have some options available to burst without access to Emperor Thorasan, but I think the Emperor here is totally safe to put on this board. I don't think you're under any threat of dying in the near future.
Well, what do you want to do as Kaldi? Only cycle, right? That's your only play.
Yep.
Cycle, just dig for the Emperor.
Yeah.
But
he's staring at
executes
14 damage from his opponent here.
Yeah, and usually you'll just see an Hellfire or Dark Bomb, and that's it. Maybe Defender of Argus even. That's enough.
Yep. If he chooses not to armor up, then Defender of Argus is indeed just lethal on its own. But the Taunt is enough to prevent that. The Taunt will also do a little job of softening up these minions so that they can be cleared more easily on a later turn. It'll take care of the Ancient Watcher to remove one of the Taunts from the board. This is just
you can
Shadow Flame the Ancient Watcher.
Yeah, that adds free health to 19. And then you have...
oh no, because you only just have...
4, 9, 12, 14, 16 damage. That's 3 off.
Yeah, it's 3 off. Sorry. I was... distracted by you talking about the Hellfire. I was imagining he had it in hand, but he doesn't. So still a little bit short, but he can make a big push here. He can play lower Theb to deny any sort of nonsense happening the next turn. It looks like he'll just set up lethal for the following turn. And that
Devin Delotep is a good play here.
Exactly what he's going for.
And another tick from the Emperor doesn't really matter, but makes it impressive, like 7 mana like Straza. And that's it. Kaldi will probably just concede this turn.
Yep, Kaldi gives over the well played, and it looks like he's going to go with the honourable route of buffing the Twilight Drake and killing himself with the Death Spite.
No, he can't even play the coin.
Nope. Denied coin value. Feels bad, man.
So it's Honorable Mitsubishi, played by Kaldi. And that means the game is tied up 1-1. Handlock is secured for StanCifka. That's not really a big issue because Head Druid is is already out of the way.
Yep.
And next matchups are left: Druid and Warrior for StanCifka, Warlock and Warrior for Kaldi. So nothing changed there. But I'm not exactly sure. I can't remember if StanCifka is playing any weapon removals in his Druid.
No, I don't remember specifically either. We saw a lot of Druids. I think almost every player at this point has Druid in their lineup. So
But
hard to remember everyone's specific builds.
But it's worth mentioning that in this tournament we see a lot of variety when it comes to deck building.
Yeah, we've seen some Priest, we've seen some Rogue, we've seen some Shaman, we've seen even in the common classes we've seen a lot of variation. Hoy was playing things like Grand Crusader in Paladin. We've seen Direwolves and Abusive Sergeants in just normal mid-range Paladin. We've seen Cifka's crazy warrior deck. So there has been a lot of pretty nice, exciting stuff here. But speaking of exciting, Innovate Shade into Coin Shade is pretty exciting if you are specifically the person playing Druid. If you're anyone else, not quite so exciting. But yeah, as the Druid player, it feels pretty good.
Feels good, man.
We've seen this situation before, right? You talked about it at the start of the broadcast. Ekop got the 2 shades down early and then just drew a timely Savage Roar to... Two Savage Roars. To just close out the game on something like turn 6 or whatever it was. So, yeah, this is the thing that can happen.
In this situation, I talked with this I talked about this with Live Coach, and he said to me that the Shadow of Extremis is one of the most important cards in this matchup. Wait, what?
Whoa!
Why don't you call out the second Shade of Extremis?
I have no idea. So by the time Hellfire can happen, which is next turn, your first Shade will have grown to 4/4. So you are fine against Hellfire.
Yes.
And like it's not like Okay, he just top deck Lerther, so now what I'm about to say is complete nonsense. But at the time when he did it, it wasn't like his curve was 3-drop, coin 5-drop. He did.
But
just
there was a huge chance that he will draw that, right?
There is a very good chance he'll draw a 5-drop, yeah, because it is a very heavy mana slot in the Druid deck. You do play a large amount of 5s, but at the same time, just getting the extra shade down there earlier just seems like a really strong play. I don't know.
But now you have to drop the low tap on curve, right? Otherwise, you're kind of being held in your tracks. If you play low tap, your opponent can't use Shadow Flame, and that's what we're worried about the most. I mean, if your opponent has Shadow Flame, you lose your both Shadow Extrams, which are extremely important because they can outgrow the giants and seal the game by themselves.
Right. The other option, of course, is to play Lertheb and feel safe that you can attack with your shades and actually deal the 8. I mean, it's an option because he can't play Dark Bomb, he can't play Shadow Flame. The only thing he can play is Owl, and that only deals with one of them. The Mountain Giant does then pick up the trade on the other one, but then you have a reasonably nice trade back into it with Swipe, and you just retain the Lertheb on the board. So I think there's definitely some merit to attacking, but I also agree with you that just having the shades grow to the immortal size where they can't be giant Shadow Flamed is really, really important in this matchup. So,
But you have to find a way to deal with the giants and the threats from your opponent.
Yes.
And if those cards are basically just waiting when they will just outgrow everything, then you just sacrifice 2 cards as a late win game conditions with no impact on board, and that's something Druid doesn't want to do.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to see second Mountain Giant here. A lot of pressure building up on this.
Big Game Hunter. Nope.
Innovate Ancient Allure is pretty nice, though.
Yeah, it is nice, but then you have to sacrifice one of the shades for the 8/3 Giant. Because you can, if you play the low tip, your plan was to play around Shadow Flame, and if you can't play around it next turn, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
So I guess you need to play the Ancient of Law, draw cards, seek for that Big Game Hunter, and search for that Big Game Hunter, sorry, and just you. Okay.
I'm just gonna use the Swipe.
I like keeping the Swipe against Handlock because that's I talked about it a lot. You can use the Swipe as a reach card to finish off the game. Right, and there's a Shadow Flame.
There is a Shadow Flame. That's a really important draw. So he's won the race, which is basically drawing the Shadow Flame before one of these shades reaches 9 health. He did still have a few turns left to do it, but allows him to deny all the value from these shades now, and they will have just been 6 mana invested for essentially nothing. These cards have done nothing this turn except to trade for a Mountain Giant and a Shadow Flame, which sounds okay. You know, it's a 2-for-2 trade, but in terms of the Druid game plan, having these shades stealth the whole time has not advanced their win condition at all. So
yeah, that's a good point you brought up. I mean, the 2-for-2 trade is a good trade. It's not bad at all. But at the same time, you lose your win conditions.
Yeah. And I suppose there was also an Innovate used on one of these shades, so it's technically a 2-for-3.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I kind of like it. Because your opponent will not use those shades unless he has double Savage Roars.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get punished really, really hard by a Big Game Hunter, but you know that you're just playing around a top deck at that point, because Big Game Hunter, there's no way that it's in his hand right now with that Giant surviving on the board for so long, with 2 Giants surviving on the board for so long, in fact.
Yeah.
But, you do give up a lot of Shadow Flame potential here, but this is a really strong play in terms of tempo. It puts out the biggest board when you consider that 3-4 is 3-4 Death Rattle Summon a 5-7. This is actually an enormous board that StanCifka has to find some sort of answer to here.
It's a really hard decision right now. Your Ancient of Law has to wait 1 turn because it's too. If you didn't play it on the turn before, you want to play it right now, even if you trade with both minions. Or with both tones, right?
Alright, Cifka gonna go ahead and silence the he's gonna swipe it.
Wait. So if he's going to swipe that, how do you trade? You don't
He
trade at
doesn't.
all.
Yeah, if he's swiping, he's leaving them stealthed. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. And this will get punished by the
And
Shadow
now
Flame.
the greed with the Shadow Flame from Kaldi pays off because he gets to pick up another minion a lot with the Shadow Flame, and it's now just a much more attractive option.
And I think that's the last call when it comes to Shadow Flame. Because the Shadow will be 8/8 next turn. And your Giant will most likely die.
Yep, especially because next turn the 6/6 Shade can just trade with the Giant and he can still retain the bigger one. So, you know, he has the option to just remove the Giant next turn and still keep his enormous Shade stealthed. So, yeah, I'd be very, very surprised if we don't see the Shadow Flame get used this turn. And it looks like that is what we are going to see. And that also just, does it set up lethal for next turn? Not quite. He's a little bit short. He has 8 damage from his hand with the Doomguard and the Dart Bomb.
Yep.
So not quite there yet.
There's the Savage Roar
That's a good
in
draw,
Force of Nature.
Yep.
But you are getting really, really low against the Handlock. And this is like change of pace when it comes to the how the matchup usually looks. Solely because of the fact that now Handlocks have Doomguard available.
Right. Yeah, it's something, you know, back in the day when Handlock used to play like the Leroy Jenkins Faceless combo.
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, and you know, you actually had to play around dying all the time against Handlock as well as trying to set up enough pressure to be able to stop them just walling you out with huge minions. So adding a Doomguard back into the deck isn't quite that level of insanity, but it does still give you that additional concern where you do have to worry about dying.
So now when you're Kaldi, what you gonna do?
Well, as I said, Mortal Coil, just always one of the most attractive cards to a Handlock player.
4 damage to the face. Oh, okay. So now this makes he has to play taunts. I mean, he was he wanted to play those taunts anyway.
Yeah, he's really digging for a big game hunter here with the Mortal Coils. Doesn't find it. 3 more to face. 7 damage from Boombots this turn.
So how does it pair up with the taunts now? Is he dead?
He doesn't have a heal bot, right? So
he has a 1 mana Sunfury Protector.
Yeah, and so he can make several large taunts this turn if he wants to. He certainly has to. He has 1 mana Molten, he has a 4/9 Drake, and then he can wall those up with the Defender of Argus if he wants to. And if he really wants to go all in, he can give taunt to the Emperor as
too.
well. Yeah, alright, I like this.
I mean, this setup's easily lethal for him next turn, if he doesn't die this turn. And 3 taunts is something you can't really, like, you can't really trade with everything here.
Yep. Next
so you die
turn,
next turn.
Yeah, next turn he just has 8 anyway, so, like, StanCifka would have to clear this entire board and armor up. Because he just has Jiraxxus Doomguard from his hand next turn, as crazy as that is.
Yeah.
Emperor Thaurissan does things to this game, Lothar. Does silly things like letting you play a 5/7 charge and one of the most broken cards in the same turn.
I mean, now the Doomguard doesn't seem so great in general. But at some point of the game, I was thinking like Doomguard is too powerful. Like when Zoo was at the top of the food chain, I just thought that Doomguard might be too powerful, and I was thinking about maybe like a change to it with a 3/5 stats and additional buffs for the cards being discarded would be cool. Like, you know, you get a +1/+1 for each card being discarded.
Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, so in the dream situation where it discards nothing, it's just not that powerful.
It's just a 3/5 charge, which is still cool. Okay, right?
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Yeah, but anyway, in the meantime, StanCifka eats a banana and wins. Loses the game to Kaldi's Handlock. So it's 2-1 for Kaldi, and Kaldi is left with his warrior, which is, if I recall correctly, a patron deck.
Yep. So yeah, Kaldi still has to pick up 1 win out of 2 with Patron Warrior, which is generally a thing that you'll feel favored doing. But he does have to get through this very, very, very sustain-heavy, life gain-heavy, removal-heavy warrior decks. This looks
with
like a
Doom Deathlords.
Deathlords, exactly, and Deathlords are really, really powerful against Grim Patron.
Oh yeah, they are, because they can put out a Warzone commander on board just to kill those.
Right.
A Floating Berserker just to kill it with Deathspite or whatever you have on board or in hand.
Right.
So they're definitely cool in this matchup.
It's a little counterintuitive because people might think, oh, you're playing a 2/8 minion. Well, they just Warsong Patron it, and then they just generate a massive board of patrons. But at that point, they're going to pull another valuable minion out of their deck. Might be something like a Frothing Berserker. It might be something like the second Warsong Commander. It might be something like the second Grim Patron. And then as the Warrior, you can just brawl that entire board away. And they've lost so much value and so many resources from their deck that they're probably just lacking in what they need to kill you at that point.
So, there's a Shield Block, Brawl, and Low Deb in StanCifka's open hand.
Sludge Belcher.
Sludge Belcher. I would say it's not bad. Your opponent is will be playing a slow deck.
Yep.
So there'll be no pressure at all. So you can cycle, you can just play your game. You don't necessarily worry about the situation.
Kaldi chooses not to play the Armorsmith on turn 2. Normally when you do that, it's kind of from fear of Acolyte, but he did have the coin Deathspite just to clear out an Acolyte if it was played in response. So I would have been okay with the Armorsmith play there, just to put something on the board to start pecking away, but no real harm in just passing and armoring up either.
Acolyte of Pain being picked up. I mean, one of the important cards in this matchup might be the Justicar Trueheart.
Yes. Justicar is pretty much just a win condition on its own against Patron Warrior, because you can basically play that, and then the Patron is forced to remove it, because 6 damage a turn is too much to start taking a beating from every turn. And then once they've removed that from the board, you actually don't have to play a card ever again. It's hilarious, right? Yeah, you can just press armor up, and gaining 2 armor a turn. Normally, you're not going to get out of range of the amount of damage Patron can do, which is 60 plus if they've Emperored a good hand. But gaining 4 armor a turn, you can get out of range of that pretty quickly. So yeah, Justicar coming down in the late game and then just never seeing another card being played is actually a pretty viable win condition against Patron Warrior.
That's true. But as Cifka now, do you want to just slam that? Yes,
I would.
Right? Yeah.
I would for sure shield slam that. Yeah, absolutely.
Because why would you keep those slams with the amount of removal you have in your deck?
Right. I mean, 2 of his removal cards are Bouncing Blades, which are not the most efficient ways to remove Grim Patrons, let's say. But, he does have the Brawl as the ultimate fallback option in his hand, so denying the card draw from the Acolyte of Pain seems pretty reasonable that turn.
Well, he did give him 1 draw, right? But it's not that big of a deal. It's basically a country.
Right. Denying things like, Cruel Taskmaster, Whirlwind into Battle Rage, or some nonsense like that happening where, the Grim Patron can really get rolling with the card draw.
Yeah. Kaldi keeping his cool. He's not even blinking. Do you go for the Patron's turn here? You can coin out Whirlwind, but I mean, you're sure your opponent will have means to deal with those, but as the game progresses, there's no chance you can sustain a board against this warrior. So, if you want to take a leap of faith here, you would like to drop the Patrons right now.
Right, and with no weapon equipped, as long as 3 out of 5 scenarios, right, you're going to have a patron remain on the board that you can continue to generate more patrons with later.
Yeah, that's true.
Because there's no weapon equipped, there's only 6 mana, so unless there is another spell like Execute or another Shield Slam to follow up the Brawl, you will still retain a patron afterwards. So I absolutely don't blame him for going for this option here. If he didn't choose to do it this turn, you can only assume that he's planning to hold it all the way for the final burst push alongside Frothing Berserkers and things like that. So yep, Cifka is forced to brawl here, and he's going to hope for a damaged patron to be the one that survives.
Or just his minion.
Oh yeah, I mean that works.
How convenient.
Yeah, that works perfectly fine. Okay, so I don't know about you, Lothar, but I think under no circumstances can you possibly Emperor this hand against...
No. You need more parts. You need more parts for the combo. Armor Smith is basically useless in this matchup.
Yeah. So
what you need is just cycle that Battle Rage, cycle that Slam before you slam the Emperor on board.
Absolutely, but Dr. Boom coming down now, so this game is going to start to accelerate, and the patron warrior is not going to have all the time in the world to pick up the options he needs.
Yeah, but he has the option of cycling now a lot of cards and slamming down the Emperor. I mean, sorry, there's not an option to play the Battle Rage this turn.
Okay, he's going to hope that both of his minions live here. Perfect. Yeah. So a 3-card Battle Rage will come down now. And he's going to look for more high-value cards like Patron, like Frothing Berserker, like additional Whirlwind effects come into his hand. All right, there's another Whirlwind effect.
Yeah, that's cool. For the next turn. Now we should use the Slam to cycle more.
Yep.
You can think about even playing the Taskmaster this turn. I mean, you just want to put more minions on board, maybe deal a small amount of damage.
Yeah, seems reasonable. At the same time, Deathspite, if this board gets cleared, Deathspite plus Taskmaster is like an emergency clear for the Dr. Boom next turn.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a good
so I can understand holding on to it, but he does still have the Inner Rage, but the Inner Rage is much more valuable to use in your eventual burst combo because it fits in. Although the Taskmaster will probably cost 1 because you're going to Emperor it. The difference between 1 and 0, which is what the Inner Rage would cost, is pretty massive. So certainly don't blame him for holding on to it there. But now the tanking up begins, and Kaldi is going to know that he has his work cut out for him this game, and he is going to have to burst through an absolutely massive life total at some point.
Now the only way of Kaldi winning this game is hitting like a double Frothing Berserker with insane amount of damage.
Yep.
And he has the option to do that, and he's not being threatened to be killed super fast. So I like that he uses the weapon. I mean, the Fear works to undeal 3 damage because I would like him to use the Deathspite next turn before the second attack with the Fear War Axe.
All right, second Brawl comes into the hand.
Well, the second Brawl is not that important as the first one.
No, absolutely
it's probably
not.
Just useless.
The only way this becomes useful is that we do see Kaldi has both War Songs in his hand. So if he decides to try and split up his lethal over 2 turns and do one turn with War Song and Patron, and then use War Song and double Frothings as the second follow-up burst, he does have the Brawl to clear out and potentially have enough mana left over to gain some more armor or play a Sludge Belcher or something like that. So it could be useful in some fringe scenarios, but definitely agree that the first Brawl is the crucial one in this matchup.
So he has 3 Whirlwind effects available, and he can fill the board because he has 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10 mana with 5 minions, 6 minions on board. Wow, that's really a lot. I'm not exactly sure how much damage will it be.
Oh, he only has 1 Frothing right now, which is the problem.
Yeah, but 1 Frothing is still might be okay. He might reach about 40 damage, I would say.
Yeah, it's 40-ish, yeah. But still a little bit short. Is he going to use the Inner Rage here?
Nah. Oh, will he? Well, he can't really squeeze more parts into the combo, right? Because that's 6, 7, 8 mana, 9 mana. He can squeeze 1 more Whirlwind, but that doesn't really do anything.
Alright, so this turn from StanCifka will just be gain 9 armor, trade with the Shield Maiden on the board. I might use the Fiery War Axe instead. No, he's going to use Bash and gain even more armor. Don't blame him at all.
Yeah, you can't play more minions because you might die.
Exactly. The one thing that's not happening is more minions being placed on this board. And I think this Fiery War Axe might as well just swing face as well. No, he's going to hold on to it. Okay.
Execute. I mean, now Kaldi wants Stan to actually play more minions.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 playable minions this turn.
6 playable minions with 7 damage Whirlwind effect, right? So that's 21.
3 Whirlwinds that go, yeah. So that's 20 damage in Whirlwinds. 4.
No, sorry, 20 because your Taskmaster dies after the second Whirlwind.
Yes. Okay.
That's clearly not enough, because that's not even the whole armor.
Yeah, that's 24, then you get 2 extra from the unstable ghoul trades. So it's 26, but then you're losing one of the unstable ghouls for one of the whirlwinds as well, so it's 25. So yeah, he's struggling to break 30 at the moment without an additional power. Yeah, additional power minion, something like a patron or a frothing berserker. If he picks up patron, we probably will see him go for the like split over 2 turn strategy. If he picks up the frothing, then it's more likely that he holds on and tries to do it all in one go, because obviously drawing the second frothing doubles the amount of damage you're doing.
That's true, but at the same time, Cifka might just not play any minion at all, and just pure power up every single turn.
Yeah, this is exactly what I talked about at the start of the game. Like, hero power pass is your win condition now.
Yep, that's very true.
Like, okay, people understand the idea of like, okay, the less minions I have on board, the less damage he can do. But the really, really important thing is if you have exactly 0 minions, then you're really limiting the amount of damage they can do, because you give them nothing to pop unstable ghouls on. So their amount of damage goes down dramatically unless they're able to do 3 whirlwind effects. And if they can do 3 whirlwind effects, the unstable ghoul is going to burst, and then it will just kill the frothing berserker, because that will be the 4th whirlwind effect. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, bad things happen. But he is going to choose to play a shield maiden here, which I do not agree with. That shield maiden almost certainly deals more than 5 damage to you.
Yes, because the 2 unstable ghouls can be popped, and the shield maiden adds itself at least 3 damage from the whirlwind's effect, and 4 damage from the unstable ghouls.
Yep. So yeah, I even though it looks attractive just to gain even more health and go up to 69 here, I think the usage of the shield maiden is actually making it marginally more likely that Kaldi is able to win this game.
And now a patron appears in the hand, so it might be viable to use the first wave of patrons to deal some damage, ignore the board.
I would 100% bouncing blades my own shield maiden right now. I'm not even joking. That's the play. You bouncing blades your own shield maiden. Bouncing blades is an appalling card in this matchup. What are you using it for? Just get that thing off the board so that unstable ghouls can't be popped. That is 100% the play. I'm dead serious. I think that's actually genuinely a mistake that he didn't do that.
Okay. I believe you. And now what do we do? I mean, you have to go with some damage. You can wait. You have to deal damage. So you play the first war song, and now you have to use the patron. Use 1 patron already, so this is your last call. And I'm not exactly sure how much whirlwind effects are left in the deck.
No, I haven't quite been keeping track either. I think he used 1, possibly, with an acolyte at some point.
I think he was 1 with the patron turn.
Right, yeah, that's what it was, yeah, because he did Deathbite, Patron, Whirlwind, yeah. So one of the natural Whirlwinds is gone from the deck. So I think just Warsong, Inner Rage, Patron is the play here. We've just been told that Kaldi only has 4 cards left in his deck, so he is 1 in 4 to top deck the second Frothing Berserker next turn. So he will be trying to do some really frantic maths here about, whoa, you have to play. You have to play. No.
I don't agree with that at all. You have to deal damage right now.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And
whoa! I just didn't count the cards in the hand.
Yeah, no, that's why I was reacting, because he didn't play anything. So he had to make a play that turn because he was going to.
Okay, I was just only about the damage, no?
Right.
Now this turn is not different at all from the previous turn.
No.
Just the fact that your opponent gained 4 armor and you burned a very important card.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably secondary only to the second Frothing Berserker in the deck in terms of important cards that he has left. He's going to use both Inner Rages here.
I don't agree with using the second unstable pool.
Yeah, I think you should almost certainly only use 1. Yeah, I think this is fine.
I mean, maybe it's okay because it's 9 damage for one unstable ghoul.
Yeah, you also have to hold the Death Spire as well.
Yes, you have to. Why would you trade?
Traded off with a 5/1 as well.
But you can't trade. You need that minion on board for the next 10 unstable ghouls.
Well, he needed. I guess he wanted to make some space on the board because obviously overfilling the board makes it more likely your opponent's able to clear. But still, I don't know about trading with the 5-1 over the 3-2. Obviously, keeping your healthy patrons is important, but I think 3-2 over the 5-1 might have been the option there. So, healthy patron survives, but it doesn't matter because we have the weapon equipped anyway to chop it down, and we are going to stay pretty comfortable at 61 life this turn after a full double inner rage unstable Ghoul Warsong combo. So.
Yeah, that's not impressive at all.
Okay,
Ben Brother was right. The deck is not impressive at all.
No. Terrible win rate in tournament, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, this means that StanCifka takes a win with his Fatigue Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's left with Druid, right?
Yep.
Okay. So StanCifka will play against Patron.
Yeah.
And as we talked before, I'm still not sure if he plays the Harrison Jones at all. But we'll probably know in a few seconds. Maybe it will appear in the opening hand.
Yeah, and this matchup, pretty much anyone that's watched Hearthstone regularly, is probably sick to death of hearing about this matchup. All of you guys know it, but for the few people in chat that don't understand this matchup, I'll explain it one more time. Basically, the Patron Warrior is just looking to generate patrons as early as possible because Druid struggles to deal with it. So you're essentially mulliganing for things like Deathbite, Grim Patron, and Inner Rage, as well as just your early minions just to play out, to try and annoy the Druid a little bit, just to have some sort of curve early. Looks like Kaldi chose to mulligan fully for the Grim Patron Dream there.
I think he kept the Deathbite.
Yeah, I mean, he kept the Deathbite, but he could have also chose to keep the Frothing Berserker just as a thing to play on turn 3, which is a viable thing to do against Druid, because Frothing Berserkers aren't your win condition in this matchup. Grim Patrons are, so you can afford to play Frothing Berserkers to fight for the board. But with the Deathbite, he decided to just mulligan his entire hand for the Inner Rage and the Grim Patron that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Tom would actually play the Tempo Frothing Berserkers in this matchup, and I don't actually... I mean, it's kind of okay to play Tempo Frothing Berserkers in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. But he did get the Frothing Berserker back into his hand. We're going to see Coin Darnassus Aspirant come out here from Cifka. And unless there's a Fiery War Axe, this will let him curve nicely into his Shade of Naxxramas next turn.
I like the play of the Darnassus Aspirant on turn 2 because most of the warriors are cutting one Fiery War Axe, but so there's less and less options of killing the Darnassus.
Yeah, absolutely. And first Shade comes down here. Second Shade is a nice pickup to go along with it, but if the Acolyte comes down, we will just see the Keeper come down to deny all value out of this.
You keep the curve, which is nice, and you deny the card, which is even more important. You don't just ignore the minion, just go for the face with the Darnassus Aspirant, wait with the Shade of Naxxramas because it's virtually unkillable when it's being still under stealth against patrons, and just kill him with these Savage Roars you will draw at some point of the game, and this and those shades.
Yep, 100%. Looks like the play this turn. It will get challenged directly by the Deathbite, and you do if you choose not to trade with the Acolyte. Ooh, is he silencing his own Aspirant? Whoa!
I didn't see that at all.
Whoa! The plays.
But would you do that? I mean, the Shade of Naxxramas has such huge value in this matchup.
Right. So
it's almost unkillable.
Our reaction here, guys, we're well aware that's a thing you can do, all right? Silencing your own Darnassus Aspirant, we're aware that's a play. But what he just did is value one of his own mana and exposing his Shade over denying a card from his opponent. Which, in Patron Warrior, denying them cards is one of the best things you can do. And maintaining pressure on the board is also one of the best things you can do. And almost the best pressure you can have in this matchup is just an ever-growing stealth Shade of Naxxramas.
Because it basically deals 1 damage per turn.
Yes, exactly. So your opponent is just on an ever-ticking clock. So yeah, really, really interesting line of play here, because it's not like he needs to protect his curve for a 5-drop next turn. As we spoke about before, he is quite likely to draw a 5 because there are a lot of them in the deck. And
well, he didn't, but he still has a Shade and Hero Power.
Yep. So it's worked out okay for him, and it protects his ramp into what is quite a slow hand, which might have been his thinking. He has multiple 7s in his hand already. He's just drawn another 7, so he's probably quite pleased that he's kept that ramp. But still, pretty big talking point of the game there. The choice to silence your own Darnassus Aspirant over silencing the Acolyte of Pain.
Mm-hmm. And Kaldi is digging for those cards. He needs... What does he need? Well, patrons, that's it.
Yeah, he needs patrons. He has Deathbite, he has Inner Rage, so as soon as he picks up the Grim Patron, he can start to address this board. 2 swings of the Deathbite plus the Execute that he has will be enough to swing himself back onto the board in terms of tempo, and then the Grim Patron, if he draws it, will then just give him an overwhelming board advantage, especially as we see StanCifka this turn just completely bricking on his draws and just has nothing to play this turn.
That's really awkward. Would you go with the Wild Growth anyway?
You can play a 7 next turn anyway. Is the difference between 7 and 8 really that big at this point? I don't think so.
I mean, the Savage draw would be big because you can combo the 1 turn earlier.
Right, that's true.
So you can set up lethal.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I guess with 2 Ancient of Laws in your hand, what's the point in holding onto a Wild Growth to cycle, right? So.
Yeah, and now we have big chances to draw that Savage Roar to lethal with that 1 Shade of next round as you still have on the board.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think you have to go down the Deathbite line here and just hope. You have a couple of turns still to pick up your Patron. And in the meantime, you can use the Deathbite to fight for this board so that it's not just, overwhelming to the point where developing patrons isn't enough when you draw them. But he has a lot of concerns here. He needs to draw cards to get to the patron. He also needs to gain life to not just eventually die to combo. And he also needs to address the state of the board. And unfortunately, there's just not enough time to do all of those things. So he is going to choose to address the board state here, but also sneaks in the slam to get 1 card deeper in his deck, which I do like.
That's true. And now we'll probably see the Ancient of Law being slammed down. I don't think the Dr. Boom is much better than the Ancient of Law in this situation. Because you practically want your opponent to use the Deathbite on a minion. And you want to dig for that Savage Roar. Because the Savage Roar is winning you the game instantly.
Yep.
And Dr. Boom doesn't necessarily guarantee that. And you deny yourself 3 chances of drawing the Savage Roar. I mean, sorry, 2 chances of drawing the Savage Roar. It's a close call because the bombs are doing damage too. And, okay, another thing is, Dr. Boom on turn... before turn 8 from your opponent is better than Dr. Boom on the turn when he can just follow it up with an Warzone Commander Patrons. But I like the Ancient of Law.
Whoa, okay, there is the Patron, and we do see that he's whiffed on the Savage Roar, so he does? No, he doesn't, does he? Yeah, no, he will
he can
go down to
Armor
10,
Smith.
back up to 12. Oh yeah, Armor Smith will gain him more armor, that's right.
Armor Smith, a Patron, Inner Rage Patron, attack into the Ancient of Law, spawn 2 patrons, get 4 armor. Yeah, 4 armor. That's it. So you will be still at 14. I mean, not still, but at 14.
Yeah, and obviously 14 isn't the number you want to be at, but at least that way you are playing around 1 card, right? You're playing around Force of Nature or Savage Roar. You're making him have both. If you don't choose to gain armor this turn and you just sit at 10 or 12, then suddenly, you do just die to Force of Nature, for example, because the Shade will grow to 5/5. So at 12 health, then you will just die to 1 single combo piece. Is he going to go with the Unstable? No, he does go with the Armor Smith. Looked like he picked up the Unstable Ghoul there at first, but he's going to go with your play, Lothar. This is the most life he can gain. And
that's an easy play.
Actually going to end up at 15, right?
Oh, you're right, because I forgot about the Inner Rage.
The Inner Rage gets 1 armor as well, So, suddenly, as long as he's not dead, the the Patron Warrior is in a pretty comfortable position.
Swipe.
Not enough mana, and the swipe gaining him armor wouldn't matter anyway, because you can just swipe last. And then if they're dead, it doesn't matter if they're gaining armor afterwards. The armor doesn't just bring them back to life. But doesn't have enough mana to Force of Nature and swipe, so not quite lethal.
Well, I'm thinking about Rev, the Armor Smith, Ancient of Law, because desperately need that Savage Roar.
Yeah.
If you go for the swipe play, you give him a lot of armor, that's first of all.
Yep. He is
I don't dislike this, but...
Yeah.
Maybe that's... Yeah, but the safest play might be the best one here.
I think it's okay as well, because his hand is pretty... Apart from the 2 Force of Natures, you know, he has Ancient of Law, Lower Third, Doctor Boom in his hand, so he's prepared for this game to keep going. He doesn't need to kill him immediately. So yeah, I don't mind the activating the long game play here and just clearing the patrons off the board and asking the patron warrior to come up with something else. But suddenly the burst option is disappearing from Cifka's bag of tricks, because all of a sudden we're back up to 24 and we still have the attacks on the board to gain even more armor.
And clear the second Shade of Naxxramas, which is a big deal.
Yep.
Now the Dr. Boom has less and less value, because it's already turn 8, and if there will be a second Patron Warzone commander that allows it to regain control of the board, and probably not die anyway, because you know that there's no combo.
Yep.
Wait, what? Will he play on Unstable Ghoul on this board?
He'll play Unstable Ghoul
and execute in this situation? Probably, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense because you set up for Patron next turn. Sure.
Yep. So he can Warsong Patron now next turn if there's no removal for the Unstable Ghoul. We do see a Wrath in Cifka's hand, which he can play alongside pretty much anything he wants. It does prevent him from doing the double 5-drop play. Normally double 5-drops on turn 10 is a hugely powerful thing that Druids love doing, but I think you have to respect the Whirlwind effects in the Patron deck and just Wrath this thing down.
And
so at this point...
Still lacking the Savage Roar.
Yeah, at this point, do you value Dr. Boom on the board more? Because, you know, just fishing for the Savage Roar isn't enough anymore. Do you value just having the bigger body and the Boombots on the board? Or are you scared of something like Warsong Patron happening on your Boombots?
I think you should dig for cards.
Okay.
The Dr. Boom is nice, but it allows you, it allows basically your opponent just to gain more patrons by default.
Yeah.
With no cards at all in his hand, and that's not something you want to do because you have no second clear. Oh, look at it. That's Savage Roar.
Savage Roar. All right.
So next turn, Azure Drake and Blow Tip, right? Just to dig for that Innervate. Because you want to double to increase the damage potential each turn.
Just
Opal Shatter instead of Azure. Wait, what am I talking about? Sorry. I was mistaken.
So yeah, Emperor seems like the simple play here. You are now threatening the kill back the other way. This is a pretty nice looking Emperor hand. It's lacking probably something like an Inner Rage or a Whirlwind. Obviously the Inner Rage doesn't matter for getting discounted, but it's something that you'd like to have in your hand at this point. You are threatening the kill just back the other way. Ah, there you go. You knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, I knew.
Yep.
Profit. So the Lotep has to get down right now.
The Lotep has to get down. Are we watching Paladin all of a sudden? Yeah.
I like that. Aggressive stance.
Yep. Ooh. We're ignoring the Emperor Authority.
It doesn't necessarily... trading with the Emperor doesn't do anything good for the Druid player. Because you know your clock is ticking, and one tick from the Emperor already made a huge difference.
Yep.
So playing this aggressive stance like that means your opponent has to be on the clock, and he will trade with the Emperor.
Yep.
So I really like that. Saves 5 damage. I mean, not saves. It actually adds 5 damage.
Sure.
So I really like that. Really like that.
So we're going to see a board clear turn here from Kaldi. Can he get the board clear? Not quite, right?
And it's not lethal, right? Because you have only one.
It's not lethal. There's no way this is lethal.
Only one whirlwind effect. The second one is at 5 mana in your hand.
So you get 6 from patrons, 5 from the Emperor, so that's 11. So the frothing would need to do 17, and this frothing definitely does not do 17.
But you lose your patrons if you want to clear this board.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't want to do.
Well, you lose your frothing berserker if you want to clear this board, or your Emperor, right? So
yeah, Emperor is better because you need the
you need to bank the 15 to face. So.
Yeah. Oh, actually 2 damage missed.
Yep.
He was worried about roping, so he queued up first the frothing berserker instead of the Emperor.
Yeah, I mean sometimes when you're playing patron, it's most important just to get the turn done. You know, sometimes you do have to excuse minor mistakes like that when the rope comes down, because with all the animations going off, the most important thing is just to get some semblance of the right turn done. And sometimes little concerns like the ordering with frothing berserkers and making optimal trades with like using a 2 health patron instead of a 3 health patron and all that sort of stuff. So, sometimes it does go a little wrong. But yeah, Kaldi's just going to swing for the fences here and hope to top deck the second frothing berserker.
Yeah, because that's his last win condition.
Does he have one left? No, he drew one early, right? Or is that still the same one that's been in his hand?
I think that was the
game?
same one.
Okay.
Because it was far to the left in the hand.
Okay.
And StanCifka will just slam down the Belcher because he's one of lethal right now. So I guess the Belcher has to come down.
Yep. Seems legit. And he's gonna skip playing a second minion, or is he gonna put down the aspirant here as well?
I don't think so. He doesn't need the second minion.
Yep, agree.
And that's it, basically.
Yep, that's not good enough. Kaldi needed his frothing berserker that turn. Even then, can he push through?
The problem with the Belcher being played after the death rattle of the depth spite means that you cannot execute the little slime after you attack with the depth spite.
Right.
The trigger of the death rattle will be first before the spawn of the slime, so you don't have an option to go through the taunt before you attack with the frothing berserker. So even a frothing berserker draw this turn wouldn't guarantee anything.
Yeah. So he'd need to have Inner Rage executed the taunt, and obviously Inner Rage was the card he drew this turn, so if he'd have drawn the frothing berserker, he wouldn't have had it. So yeah, even the frothing berserker wouldn't have won the game.
It would be really hilarious to see it other way around, like first Belcher, then Death Spite, right?
Yeah.
But then you couldn't attack for the first time. So no, never mind. That's not possible.
Right.
Unless you hit another minion.
Yeah.
And that's GG.
That's going to be the game.
StanCifka advances to the semifinals, and he will be facing RDU. And RDU is sporting Patron 2. Interesting. I would really like to see how this semifinal will pan out for both of these players. So we know, congratulations to StanCifka. He kind of cements his, I would say, like, he's not that known in the Hearthstone scene yet, but he's almost a legend in Magic the Gathering. And
absolutely, yeah.
Like him seeing his quality of play in Hearthstone, I hope to just cements his stands on the board. I mean, his place on the scene. Sorry. And so congratulations again to StanCifka. We have both semifinals already in our brackets. You can check those by typing !bracket, and then you will get a link to the abiosgaming.com. And the next semifinal we'll see is the mirror match between Archon members. Maybe not mirror match, but yeah.
The team kill game between the two Archon members remaining. So we have our semi-final lineup fully ready to go. So the first semi-final, I believe, that we will see will be Orange versus Firebat, and then we will follow that up very shortly with RDU versus StanCifka.
Yes, and now we'll be jumping through a quick commercial, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.